Before we even start, I just want to say I know absolutely nothing about this podcast stuff. So I'm sure we'll get better as time goes on. But Rich, I want to thank you because you're the guy who knows all about this and you're giving me this opportunity to do it. So I'm really grateful. So the whole deal with this thing is that this all started not out of my brainchild. It came out of my daughter's head. And my daughter's boyfriend is a senior in high school. He just graduated. So congratulations, Jared. And he wants to be a physician. He doesn't have a parent that's a doctor. He kept asking me questions about what do you do? How do you do it? What classes should you take? What med school? You know, what college should you go to? Because he wanted to get into med school. He knew I didn't have a father that was a doctor or a mother that was a doctor. So he used me for guidance. And finally, my daughter said, I had enough of asking you these questions for him. Why don't you do a podcast? And that's where this started. So that's where we are. The goal of it, I spoke to you about it already, and you thought it was a good idea to do this.
I totally think so.
You know, the perspective is that I want to help kids and adults that want to get into healthcare to understand what it's like, what they can do, how they can make their CV better, what's the goal, and what is medicine actually. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school in California. My high school was actually called California High School.
Are you kidding me?
No, not. It's in the Bay Area.
That's really funny.
Right.
Did you ever consider going into med school, or you knew you wanted to be a nurse?
Funny story is when I got out of high school, no, I did not think I was going to go into nursing. My father-in-law was like, why don't you just become a doctor? And then like, well, doctor is going to take a long time to finish that. You know
was he a physician?
No.
Okay, so he just thought it was be on the top of the totem pole.
Right.
Why
Engineer,
don't you do that?
yeah, I mean, like definitely. Right. So I'm like, I'm not sure. Like, I really wanted just to get school done. So I called up one of the nursing schools in California, and they're like, hey, you know, we need to fulfill a male quota for how many guys are enrolled in school.
Wow,
right?
that's crazy.
It's
so it was actually
crazy.
An advantage to be a male to get into nursing school back then.
in the 90s. Yeah.
Wow,
so
that's
I'm like,
crazy.
The lady was like, we can get you next semester.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm like, you know what? Let's just give it a go. I went to, I had a meeting. I met with the counselor, and then she this is a funny story. So she grabbed my transcripts, and she looked at it, and she's like, you know what? You can probably go on the fast track and complete, because you did your sciences, your English, chemistry, and like we can probably get you out in 2 years, you know, because like, you know, I was in junior college forever.
Right.
And then she looked on the other side, and it's like withdrawal. And like, yeah, you're going to be a freshman. To be honest with you,
yeah,
I really felt I was already destined to be in this field, just because like my mom back in the days would bring VHS tapes of cases,
right?
Because she was a specialist in eyes, spine, and orthopedics, but they would literally bring tapes of like scoliosis cases, right? And then they would
which are big, gory surgeries.
Mm-hmm. So I watched that at a really, really early age of my life. And then,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but these are like surgeries that you're literally making an incision from somebody's top of their neck all the way down to their back.
Right.
And you're putting these massive rods that go across both sides with screws and wires. And that didn't bother you as a kid?
Didn't bother me at all. My parents would dress us, or my mom would dress us in Halloween in scrub attire. You know, in the medical field, like there's stuff that you don't open, so you get to take them home, you know, the stuff. So we had scrub gowns, and then she would put like fake blood on us, but that we would have like the coolest free costume. So it was just kind of destined that that's what I was wearing as a career as well.
It was either a nurse or a serial killer. One of the two.
Nah, it was definitely serial killer. No.
Exactly.
Right.
But do you feel like you even knew what a nurse was at that time? I mean, you knew your mom did it. You knew that it dealt with blood and big incisions.
I told myself I didn't want to be like my mom. So that was like one thing that discouraged me from going into nursing, because I didn't want to put the hours that were going to take away from me and my kid.
But what's amazing is, and again, because I know you, you're a phenomenal father. And you could still be a nurse, and you did, and still be able to do a phenomenal job with your daughter and be there for her.
Right.
I mean, I don't know anybody that spent more time raising your daughter than you did.
No, thank you.
So as a nurse, you can still have the best of both worlds.
Exactly. Yeah. So then that's what I kind of learned in the process of this, because I told myself I would never work as hard as my mom did.
And you've definitely proven that.
I definitely proven that.
I'm only kidding.
It's kind of where I got my name, Lazy Rich.
That's
but
right.
It's so funny though, because I'm like the less laziest person out there, but
Right.
I do know my limits of where I want to direct most of my time in. And I think that's the beauty of nursing, is that if you want to work 24/7, you totally can and make great money for it. Or you can space out and have a great life and still do the things that you love to do, like be a father or do your sub stuff like this podcast or tech stuff.
Well, the amazing thing about all of medicine, and remember, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I do hip and knee replacements. So surgeon typically traditionally means working more than less. But the thing about all healthcare is it's so dynamic. There's so many different fields and so many different options that you could really find your niche if you choose to. You could work 1 million hours, or you can work less than that. When I was young, I worked 1 million hours. Now that I'm getting older, I would rather spend more time off and do things like this podcast and educate other people on what to do.
Oh my God, yeah.
Than to just be in an operating room and just be operating. Now, do I love operating? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean it has to be everything. I can find the time to do this on a Saturday without any problem. So anyway, I want to go back. This is kind of fun learning about you, because for 10 years we sit in an operating room and I'm operating and we're good friends, but I don't know any of this about you, which is pretty, it's kind of fun that this is the time I'm learning it.
It's like, you know, more of the text because you're on that hand-to-hand basis with them, directly contact with them, where I'm kind of in the shadows. Like once my role with the patient contact is done and then I'm at the computer, you know, your main focus is what's in front of you, you know?
So let me ask you, 20 years later, do you still love what you do?
I do. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like I stayed in the field. Also, like you probably know this too, like I get so comfortable with my surroundings. So I love the fact that I was always in a room with a doctor, with my team that I always worked with. But then branching out with the new ventures that we have this year, I've definitely challenged myself.
Well, let me tell you a story about my psych rotation.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
So I went to med school in DC, GW, and I went to the psych ward where I trained and I did my rotation. That it's where anybody who went after the president ended up in this psych ward if they were crazy and they wanted to kill the president. And literally, I had one patient who came to DC. He wasn't from DC. He was psychotic, which means he was completely out to lunch, didn't understand reality, which is terrible. I mean, this guy stabbed his sister 27 times, came to the White House, and at that time tried to kill Bush.
Wow.
And this guy was part of my psych rotation that I spent 3 months with, talking to every single day. Well, I tell you, I'm not into the psych world. I mean, although all of medicine, you have to have some psych background and understand when you're dealing with death and dying and illness. But it was an incredible experience to be part of. And that was part of the fun of med school. I mean, med school, as hard as it sounds, and it's not that hard if you enjoy it, but you get to see all these different things. It sounds like you did too.
I look at student nurses nowadays, right? And they get to wear whatever color scrubs. Usually it's the color scrubs as their school. We had to wear polyester white. Our shoes had to be white. At least I didn't have to wear a nursing cap. That would. But you know, we had polyester white nursing gown that we had to clean, had to be ironed, and literally our shoes had to be white. And you're hot in that polyester. You get really hot.
Yeah, of course.
So that was my day. And now you get kids that are like in their cool scrubs. You know what I mean? They're branded with their school logo on there. They get jackets and stuff like that. But yeah. I think my first patient, to be honest with you, kind of directed me on how I am with every patient that I'm with now. And you're like,
what do you mean?
Like you look at it like, how does med surg even kind of coexist with like being an operating room nurse? They really don't. But with this patient, he was so grateful just to have someone there to talk to him. Having a student was like his day, because like he didn't get a lot of visitors. I remember he was probably in his 70s or 80s. And it was like a joy to him just to have conversation with somebody.
Do you remember what was wrong with him?
You know what? I don't. I really kind of vaguely remember how he looks like. He almost reminded me of like, is it like Earl Jones, the guy who was like the actor who did Darth Vader?
Yeah.
And all that? Yeah. he reminded me of him. So every time I recall this moment, I recall him for some crazy reason.
That's funny. Did he have the same voice?
Almost, yeah. I think that's probably why.
Rich, you are my
right. But it was his gratitude that he had, and I think that's what you can get out of this field is that, these patients need you.
Well, it's our life. We take care of human beings, and when you take care of human beings, some things are really funny, some things really suck, and some things are sad, and some things are, it's every emotion you can absolutely imagine. I mean,
right.
So absolutely, there's a million stories that come along with
definitely,
our life,
and I think these stories are going to help people they would want them to come into this field. You know what I mean? Or
sometimes
or stray them
some of them don't. And one day I'm in the emergency room. This person has an ankle fracture, and it's like a Saturday night at 2 a.m. And I go down there and I'm all tired and I'm talking to the patient, and there's curtains in between each room. So it's not like you have a separate room. You just have curtains and you have patient after patient after patient.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to the patient, and all of a sudden the back of my leg starts getting wet. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I look back, and this drunk guy standing up and he's peeing on my leg right in the middle of the emergency room. So not everything pulls you towards medicine, but that's medicine, and that's the fun stuff about it. That it's got everything you can imagine from that perspective. It's funny because, again, I know you. I've worked with you forever now, but do you ever still get scared?
I think so. You know what I mean?
What makes you scared? When's the last time that you were like, oh shit, I wish I wasn't here right now?
The cases that you have no control over knowing.
Yeah, that sick patient that is going to die. You got to get over there quickly. You got to figure out what the hell's going on and get that patient on the table as quick as you can.
I really feel it's the same feeling that everyone has that's within that team. Like the surgeon feels that, the anesthesiologist feels that, the tech feels that, whoever gets called in there, because we are all coming from different places to meet up to help this patient out.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's amazing. No matter how long I've been doing this, and I did trauma in New York City, trauma orthopedics, but, big cases, people fell out of 15-story buildings and they come to the hospital. But still, when there's something that's out of the ordinary, that adrenaline rush, it's exciting, but it's also, because it's a human being, it can be stressful.
No, definitely.
And those cases can be great, but they can be horrible at the same time. So I know that feeling, and that's something when you're thinking about what field of medicine you want to go into. Whether it's a nurse, whether it's a physician, whether it's a physician assistant, you really have to think about how you enjoy that adrenaline rush, because there are some fields that you can kind of mitigate it out and not be part of, or be into it all the time. And that's kind of what's interesting is, like, even in our career, as we've gotten older, we went from, Rich, you mentioned Spring Valley, but Spring Valley was a traditional hospital system that there's an emergency room and really sick patients come in. And now you work at a hospital which is really an elective type of surgery, that it's all hip and knee replacements in an orthopedic hospital.
Right.
So you've kind of changed your practice even 20 years later to fit where you are in your stage of life now.
Definitely. And I think that's what's nice about the medical field is you can kind of pick and choose what area you want to be at.
Right.
The intensity of where you want to be at. Because there are some nurses that they would not even think about doing OR nursing because it's boring to them. They like the excitement of not knowing what's coming through the door, so they kind of fit well in the emergency room, or they like that intensive care thing where they have a sick patient and they're helping them through that part of that stage of their healthcare,
Right.
So
it's the same with medicine too. Like, for the life of me, I can't understand why somebody would want to operate on hemorrhoids all the time. I mean, thank God we need them,
Right.
But definitely not for me.
Yeah.
So, and that's medicine. It's everywhere. Do you did you ever have anybody ever die on you?
I actually had a patient that did pass away. It was a non-elective case. Or a scheduled case. It was a on-call case, and we got called in. And I don't know. Maybe this could be a different story, or would you want us to talk about it now?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I mean, listen. Again, the point of this is that people out there understand what it's really like. No bullshit. Pardon my French. you know, who we are, what we're like, that we're regular people. We're not these gods, and, you know, we do regular things. And at the same time, we have a life that is molded around, around other human beings. And if it's right for you out there, then what I want to do, hopefully over the next months or years, is help you get through that and understand what it's really like, if it's right for you or not, if you want to be a doctor or become a nurse or a nurse practitioner. But we should be all, you know, say everything, just, you know, good or bad, you know. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you, but let's hear.
No. I mean, this is what the channel is all about.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So. When you're on call, though, we have things that are separated. So hospitals have general call, neuro call, and heart call. So this particular case that we got called in was a young girl, probably in like a teenage. I think she was 18.
So she was young.
Mm-hmm. She was also pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a drug overdose. So,
oh my God, that's terrible.
It was fetal demise, so the baby was dead.
Okay, baby already died in the mom's.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a
So no,
story.
totally no, and
Holy
I didn't really want to bring it up.
No, this is the right place to do this. I mean, this is reality. I mean,
right. So you know, you get the call. You have to go in the ER and then bring them into the operating room, and it really sucked because there was no family there.
Was this 18-year-old girl alert, oriented? Was she in a coma?
No. She was in a coma. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't even know what actually happened to her. All I know is that our main goal of that procedure was to remove the baby from her.
Why does it have to be taken out while she's in a coma? I mean, could they wait, or is that something that was an emergent kind of case?
I really don't remember like the whole synopsis of it all. Mm-hmm. All I know was that was something that they wanted to do. Right.
It had to be done. Whatever reason.
And then I really felt like they even thought like the girl wasn't going to make it either.
So it's for the survival of this poor 18-year-old girl who, oh my God, go on, let me hear more.
Right. So the long story short, this case totally sucked though, because it's kind of like, but again, it was
sucks already just hearing this.
Family of the girl arrived, and it was more of a they wanted to at least say their goodbyes to the baby, so they brought their own baby clothes in.
Oh, right. God, yeah.
So and it was really weird. So this is late at night. I'm there all by myself, and so I call labor and delivery, and then they had no help that they can help me with this. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. What I need to do? I have all this baby clothes. I never did L&D before in my life. We had to go through our rotations, but it was like a couple weeks. So it was crazy though, because like the only person that helped me was the EVS guy at night.
Which EVS means?
EVS, the guy who cleans the rooms.
Right, environmental services. This is basically, which we're grateful for, because they sterilize or clean the rooms and everything, but they're janitors.
Right. Was the only one, and I'm in this room all by myself, right, with this infant, you know what I mean? And he helped me wash the baby off, you know, make sure the baby is clean as possible, had towels. We put the baby's clothes on, and then we presented it in like a blanket in like a little crib, you know what I mean, and to the family.
Oh, this is right. This is medicine. I mean, this is what happens, you know.
Right. So
what happened?
To me, I felt good because we did it, and the family was able to grieve from it. Right.
They did the
right thing. And then I was like so grateful for our EVS guy to just stay, because most of the time they'll just leave. So we had this special room. I called the nurse supervisor. Okay, we set it up. Family got to do their thing. And then I got to go home. I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst case I've ever done in my whole life. So I get this call. Now it's like, it's 6:30. My work said, okay, you had a crazy case. You don't have to come in. But then I get a call at like 6:45 saying like they lost the baby. What did I do with the baby?
Oh my God.
So like this case has not ended yet. So I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I talked to L&D. We had this room designed for the family to grieve, and then they were going to take the baby and you know, after that point, and do what they needed to do. I had no more control. After I punched out, I was gone. So then I get this call like, what did you do with the baby? They can't find the baby. I'm like, oh my God. So what happened was, so I go down there, and they end up finding that they ended up putting the baby in another area, which I had no control of. But I'm like, wow. I'm like, God, it just shows you the craziness that can happen in like one case.
So, this is really like a Grey's Anatomy
Yeah, it's
type
like
of scenario.
like
You don't believe this could happen. Now, so you're 17 years into your practice. Do you get post-traumatic stress from stuff like that? Like, do you end up, you're used to it?
I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah. I'm pretty much the same way too now. I mean,
but see, you know, because like it's like we recall not great stories, but just traumatic stories, great stories and all that. But then like our everyday cases, they're not boring, they're not bland, but you know, they're just routine cases. But there are those few that are outside of like, you know, orthopedics or whatnot that will trigger a response like, oh my God, I felt like yesterday that just happened.
They stay with you forever.
Right.
There are certain people that they become part of who you are. Yeah,
because like
part of your soul.
Because literally, like I can, like right now, I can feel like I'm like kind of looking all over the place. Like, who's gonna help me with this young infant? And then the EVS guy is like, I'll help you. And then we're in the room. We're doing a bed bath on, you know, just taking out so that we can present this child the best way that we could. And yeah, it was such a crazy night.
That's unbelievable. Did you ever find out what happened to Mom?
No, I didn't.
God, I hope she's better. That's such a horrible
thing. Felt like I've told you my whole life in like 30 minutes.
Well, that's what we want, right?
Yeah.
But I heard now nursing school is actually hard to get into. There's a wait list.
It is. It's not like how like, oh, you're a guy, let's get you in next semester. It's not like that anymore. It's definitely 50-50. You know, there's really no gender of nursing. It's really weird. Like when I got into the field, it was so not it was just really weird. It's like, oh, male nurses are in the field now. Nursing wages are increasing because of the male nurses. I mean, we heard it all, but to be honest with you, the wage and the nurses' salaries increasing just because of one, the demand of nursing, and two, the type of care that we have to give. And a lot of the schooling. I mean, schooling is just not a AA degree. It's well,
what's an AA degree?
Associate's degree.
Which is you can still be a nurse with an associate's, right? But do you recommend that?
You know what? It's changing because like a lot of places are making people do the fast track, which is like another course to get your bachelor's degree.
Okay.
You know, so they want to increase your degree into a bachelor's of science. So we do have a few of the old school nurses that, you know, have just a, you know, associate's diploma, but now a majority, most nursing programs are bachelor's of science.
So if you decide you don't want to be a physician, but you like healthcare, you recommend getting a bachelor's degree in nursing?
I would, because like it just saves you the time in case like the rules change and you have to be a bachelor's degree. You know,
how's the money? Is it reasonable? I mean, don't tell me the number, but
no, like state to state, it varies. You know what I mean? Like California wages for nurses are incredibly high, from $80 to $100 an hour.
Holy jeez!
Right.
But of course, $40 an hour is for taxes.
Right. it all changes. You know, I don't know what a new grad nurse makes in California. Probably in the 40s and 50s, but they're definitely up there. Nevada, it's a different story. Nevada, you can make, you know, from, you know, 20 something all the way to like $60, $70 an hour, depending on your experience. Because I know, like, going back to surgical technicians, I know some surgical technicians has been doing that part of surgery, that field for such a long time that they make more than some new grad nurses.
Well, that's anything, you know, more experience, you get better at it, you get paid more.
But you look at it as there's always work for a nurse.
You'll always have a job.
You can always have a job, and you can, and there are jobs everywhere you can go. You can go to different country if you want to and practice. And
it's a job that you can support your family. You can get your house, get your car, take care of everybody. I think it's probably time let's start wrapping this up. But I could not do this without you, Rich.
Right.
Over time, the hope is that I had no guidance with my parents, unfortunately. I did know a little bit about medicine, and you'll learn that my father was in an ambulance corps, and I started riding very young in an ambulance corps, but my dad was not a college graduate. He owned a motorcycle store. I had no guidance of medicine. I thought it was this magical thing to go into. But I made it through it. But there's things that you can do to make it through it easier. And my hope is that the 120,000 people that get into medicine, if I can help some of you get in there so you can enjoy your life and find yourself, then I'd be honored to be part of that. So I'm hoping that with your help, Rich, that we bring more people here. We bring other fields of medicine, anesthesiologists, surgeons, cancer specialists, hemorrhoid doctors, and you could start to learn about what they do, and not just what they do, but how they got into it, why they got into it, and that will help you guys get into it and make your dream a reality like I made mine and you made yours. If you want to learn about medicine and the life of medicine and not just see it on Grey's Anatomy, then, we want you here. I mean, and we want to be able to answer questions and make it a real reality of what it is. Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Rich.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and I hope to see you for round 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds good.
Right.
Thank you.